Hey guys, I'm back. I want to talk about air superiority. So the first step in air superiority is to figure out who has an AWACS advantage. You're going to find that here, right? It's usually set by scenario and then various game actions, usually air superiority battle, will move that. So if we look here, it appears NATO has an air superiority advantage of 1. What that means is they put their units in the air superiority combat area second. So in here we've got a little limited set of what we're going to do. So the Russians just decide they're going to put everything up to face off against what NATO has. Just so happens they both have 3 units. So NATO goes ahead and pushes up this Mirage and this Polish, I think that's an F-16. Yep, up into there. And then the Allies opted to take their F-35 C's as an optional unit. They paid 5 VP to the ally for this unit. The carriers are still in the North Sea, so if you look here, only long-range units may fly missions. Well, we're in luck. The F-35C is long-range, which is good because the F-18s that normally come on there are not long-range. So the other advantage of having AWACS is that you get to the first engagement. So this MiG-31, as you may have seen in another video, has a long-range standoff value, and that's pretty powerful. Although the 3 air-to-air combat value doesn't make it quite as valuable as, say, the F-35s. But wanting to mask that from getting to one of his other planes and maybe shooting down the Mirage before he even has a chance, he's going to go ahead and push his F-35 up against that MiG-31. So then play shifts over to the Russians. They can choose their matchup. So they can take their Su-27 up against this F-16 and get the 5 on the 4, or they could try to crush the Mirage with a +2 difference and then hope that the evening out with the -1 on the MiG here will help them survive, even though they're equal air-to-air combat value. So that's what they're going to try to do. Their goal is to get rid of Allied air power. So we end up here. So I'm not going to roll dice or anything. We'll just talk through it. The first step in all combat is long-range combat. Now, when you're doing air superiority, it's easier just to, because there is no re-engagement, it's easier just to take the 2 planes that are squared off and run through their long-range standoff and dogfight combat and then go to the next step, rather than trying to go down the line and doing all the long-range and then all the standoff and then all the dogfight. So in this case, the MiG-31 and the F-35C, they both have long-range standoff. But if we come over here to our advanced air combat differential chart, you notice in this red box, stealth aircraft can't be engaged by long-range or standoff fire. So the Allied player is protecting himself from that long-range fire because, of course, the F-35 is stealthy. So the S there means. And so the MiG-31 doesn't get to fire in long range. It also doesn't get to fire in standoff, but the F-35 does. And so given 2 chances, we'll say he aborts this guy and damages him and sends him off to here. We just push this off to the side. He stays here. He can be used as an escort or an interceptor later in the game turn. Here you see the Su-27 facing off against the Mirage. It's a pretty stout difference. Standoff fire is always simultaneous anyway. We'll assume though that the Mirage ends up losing and gets aborted, but no loss. And then this guy gets moved over here as well. This is a much more even fight. If they both miss in standoff, then we'll go to dogfight. In dogfight, you go in order, highest combat value first. These guys are both even, so they would fire simultaneously. And of course, the MiG-29 or MiG-29. Yep, MiG-29 has a slight advantage. His pilot skill's a -1. So we'll say he also aborts the Polish F-16, and then this is what we have left. And again, these guys on the Russian side could end up being interceptors or escorts later in the turn. But before we do that, we have to figure out what the effect on air superiority is. So if we come down here, you can see it's under the advanced game, 1.5 to 1. So that's a reference to the number of air units left in here. So we have a 2 to 1. If we come down here, we're 1.5, but we're not 3 to 1. So air superiority shifts. The non-allied is going to have an advantage. If you come look at the AWACS advantage, because the Russians earned something other than contested, this shifts one to the left. Had the Allies won some kind of air superiority, it would have shifted one to the right. If you ever get air supremacy, this would move 2 boxes. So it would either go to 3, or if the Allies had gotten it, it would go 1 and then 2. And that's air superiority. Hope it helps.